All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Get Better at Improv podcast. My guest today is Chris George. He goes by CG. Uh, he is a Chicago improviser, but you're like a you're like a world improviser. He's an improv teacher. He's a movie aficionado, which we talked about a long time ago. And you do one of the best improv shows, in my opinion. I love it to death. If you're a fan of like Mystery Science Theater 3000, it's kind of like that, but it's live, baby. It's all live, and I love it. Please welcome Chris George. How you doing?
Hey, Anthony, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man. So welcome to the Improv U main stage. This is our community Discord. This is where we had our meet and greet recently, and I'm so glad you're here and checking this out. We were talking just before the show, and you were telling me about how you posed a question recently on the Improv subreddit about community. You do want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it occurred to me at one point not that long ago that I hear a lot of improv theaters and improv places talk about, community and, if I go to like improv camp or a festival, as I ask like, well, what's the scene like in X town? What's it like in Improvburg or, Florida City or California town?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and a lot of people are like, the community's really good or it's weird. In fact, I would say a topic apropos of nothing and maybe one that's beyond this is over the last year or so as I've asked this question, I've mostly got it's really weird, which is the default answer, I think, for all. It's just like the people, the old heads in various improv communities coming out of the pandemic, which I think we could say we are more or less post pandemic at this point,
Yeah.
are all like, it's real weird being in our community. And that's like universal. Everybody, it seems, feels like their community is a little odd or quirky or that it hasn't quite gotten its feet. And that appears to be fairly universal. But, aside from that, the question I always think is somebody says, I like slow improv, let's say, for example, or I
Yeah.
love a festival. And I think people have different ideas in their mind about like what that is. So, when I hear people say like, oh, our improv community is so great, or improv community is so weird, or whatever, I always wonder like, well, what do you mean when you say community? Like, what is that to you? Because it varies from place to place. I got a friend of mine in Trenton, New Jersey, who just started doing an improv team there for about, I don't know, last year or so, 9 months, 12 months or so. She's a friend of mine from college, and I sort of helped answer some questions for her and help her figure a few things out in the beginning. But they have no improv in Trenton prior to her, so her community is her team with nothing outside of it. Whereas here in Chicago, I think we have sort of a meta community because you have sort of smaller communities that revolve around individual theaters and they don't necessarily talk to each other, or there's not a lot of overlap in that Venn diagram of the various theaters. So, the community means something different to them.
Well,
So I guess the question I really posed on the improv Reddit, and I didn't get a lot of responses, which is fine, was just like, when you say community, what do you mean? What does community mean to you? And I did get some very thoughtful answers. A lot of people like, well, for students, it's probably their class. For performers, it's probably their theater. For people in the town, it might be the whole town. But I think it's still very odd because the definition of community is kind of that there's an in group and it is defined by its separation from the out group. So for improv communities, we're saying who are the improvisers versus who are the non-improvisers. Even though I think in a larger city like Chicago, we acknowledge that like the in group also includes an out group that is inside the in group, which is like, well, I'm at IO, but also I do a lot of shows at IO, and I don't really know a lot of the other people at IO. I know the people on my night, but I don't know the people really who play on Friday night. So that's a further subdivision of community within the IO community.
I'd like to take a crack at answering this question. Um,
Great. I would love to hear an answer.
okay, so Marissa is here. Hey, how are you? Welcome, welcome. Uh, so Marissa's in the audience now listening. Uh, the Art of Community by Charles Vogel. This is a book that I have not read, but I am reading a book that references this book. Um, so I'm not going to say I've read this book, but I'm currently reading a book that mentions this book, and in that book, it says a community is a group of people with mutual concern for one another.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when so you and I think, are part of the improv community, or you're in my improv community, and all of the people here are part of our community because we have mutual concern for each other.
Sure.
If
Yeah, yeah.
you have an issue outside of, you can't do a show or improv in general, like you have something going on in your life, I'd like to think we're friends. I'd like to think we're part of the same community. I have a mutual concern for you. I want to hear about what's going on with you. If you had a bad time with something, you can bring that to the community and say, I had a bad time with this. And the community, we want to make sure we're not judgmental. We want to make sure we hear people out, understand what's going on with them. That requires the ability to have difficult conversations, because you want to be able to grow the community, or you might have people in the community who might hear you say you had a bad experience, but they may have heard something different, like you don't like a certain person. It's like, well, that's the communication management of a community. But that's beside the point. I think um, mutual concern is where it starts, because it's like you said, yeah,
Sure.
we all do improv. Yeah, your class, well, that's a group. Your But you can have a community within the class. If all the students in the class have mutual concern for one another, well, now you've created a little community within the class, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Never heard it phrased that way, as mutual concern, but I like that. That's very nice.
Yeah, me
I
neither. It felt right.
I think if I've had any, when people ask me like, well, what's it like doing improv in Chicago? I'm like, it's fine, but sometimes it is very frustrating because
Yeah, right.
maybe we don't have a lot of mutual concern for each other. Because, like I said, I do a show. I've done a show at IO that I direct every Wednesday night. If anybody's listening to this podcast, Wednesday nights 9 p.m. IO, it's Keystone. We're doing the deconstruction. I've been there for a year and a half, and I know almost nobody else at the theater. People don't really come watch each other's shows. They're not, I don't, even if I had a mutual concern, I would have no idea really how to get in touch with anybody else from any other team to like talk that out. Which is not to say that I haven't had that conversation, because I met a guy who runs a different show on a different night, and we got to talking, and we realized like we have a lot of the same sort of frustrations, but we've never really talked before because we are on different nights. We are separated by time and distance, and by schedule, that we don't encounter each other, so we didn't even realize that we had any mutual frustrations.
Right. Because there's no space for that. Like, you have a space to do improv. So when you're at improv, it's not work, but it's not home, and it's not hanging out. So it's you're at improv, and then when improv's over, you might go hang out, and but that might not be the case. So there's that kind of like third space kind of missing. Where's
Yeah.
that space for the community? Where's that fireside chat kind of a thing, where we can all just kind of have a moment to just be like, well, what's going on? Like, how are we feeling about stuff? Um,
Yeah, it's
you know,
so odd, and I don't know what it's like where you're at, but I feel like people in other large cities that I've talked to have similar concerns. Just like Chicago, for example, it is a busy bunch of improvisers. I mean, they do not watch each other's shows often because they are in four other shows. People do not go watch shows in general. If they go watch something, they'll go watch it once.
right, right.
It's just like a lot of I think of a Louis L'Amour book called Just Passing Through. It's about this cowboy, and he sort of goes by Just Passing Through because that's all he really says. Hey, what are you here in town for? Just passing through.
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of improvisers in town that they are on their way to something else. As my mentor Bill would say, they're always swimming for deeper waters, as everyone's trying to get on the next big team, the next big show. So there's not a lot of attention paid for mutual concern.
And I think you bring up a good point, because there's different people that are in improv for different reasons. Not everyone who's an improviser wants to be a part of that community, or there might be different types of improv communities. So there might be the values of some improvisers are. I'm here to get better and I'm here to become a star, for example. That might be that
Mhm.
might be their goal. And that's not necessarily my goal. And but that could be their goal. I also want to say welcome to Billy Merritt in the audience right now. Thanks for joining, Billy.
Oh, Billy Merritt,
Oh, are you
of Pirate
familiar?
Robot Ninja fame.
Yeah. Uh, thank you for being here. Thank you, Billy.
I,
Um,
I took a workshop from Billy in Omaha, Nebraska, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. He probably does not remember me, but it was a very good workshop.
well, we'll see. Maybe he does. I mean, you can post in the chat too. If you're just listening, that's fine too. There's a little chat feature as well that you can if you want to ask questions or things like that on the side. But yeah, so happy to have you here too. And that book you mentioned, just passing through, um, that sounds cool. That just sounds like a fun story. Um,
Yeah, if you're into the Louis L'Amour kind of, laconic westerns, it's a pretty classic one. I don't remember much about the plot other than the title and that sort of being the name of the character. No, it's interesting what you bring up though about sort of like what people expect to get out of it. I think the reason why I sort of initially hit upon the question of like what does community mean to different people is because there was a theater back in San Diego where I used to do improv that I used to do improv at, and they were big on touting their community. But for me, it always felt like they were touting their community because they were cultivating a group of people who could pay for stuff.
yeah.
Because they were always looking for money. So for them, at least from my read of it, the impression was we are developing a community of people with deep pockets who can pay for us to to continue operating when we run into financial trouble.
And that's the difference between the word community, the definition I think that we're talking about, and the definition that they have are different because, or the meanings of those words, because the meaning of community for a lot of people has been used so much. I mean, businesses, corporate executives have used that word so much that it really has lost its meaning. When I say, oh, I'm
Yeah.
building a community, they're like, well, okay, great. It's like, no, you don't understand. Don't think about that word as it's been used before. Think about it from the Web 3.0 connection and community and caring about each other and just having a space where those values that we all share together are in the same place. There are
Yeah.
casual improvisers who I like the difference between casual and professional. I sometimes have improvisers who come to me and they go, I'm really frustrated. I've got this person on my team, and they're not doing the thing. I go, are they professional or casual? And they go, well, I don't know. Well, find out because you might be a professional improviser, and Marissa's got to go back to meetings. All right, take care. Thanks for stopping in.
Hi,
Uh,
Marissa.
so you might be a professional improviser. I consider myself to be a professional improviser, and all that means is when I go to do improv, I take my silly stuff seriously.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean by that. And but some people don't. Some people look at improv like open mic night or
Sure.
karaoke, which I take both of those professionally too. but but they might be like, whatever, but some people, it's their life, Like when I go to like a
Yeah.
ice rink and I go ice skating, I'm casual ice skater.
Mhm.
I'm not a professional. I'm definitely not thinking about the better way to do it. And when I take those skates off, I'm just glad they're off, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
Bill Arnett always says that there's a group of people who do improv that for them, if it wasn't improv, it would be paint and sip night or basket
yeah,
weaving
yeah,
or whatever. There are definitely a class of improviser for whom they just want an activity to do, one night a week that's their extracurricular and it's fun and it's low key and it's cash. I think a lot of ink has been spilled on the house team about whether or not the house team at theaters are appropriate or not. And I think generally the way that when we look at house teams that don't do well, it's because the people who are there have different reasons why they are there, and the theater ends up casting 12 people, of which four are there for a social event, four are there to be on Saturday Night Live, and four are there because they're trying to date somebody at the theater, or their friends are there, or they're not sure. They're just go along to get along type people, and
yeah.
like a mixture like that. Oh man, you're gonna run into a lot of hurt feelings. I think about those people being mixed on a team together.
Yeah, and all of that can be solved with communication and asking, why are you here? What do you hope to get? What are your values? And do those values align with the values of the rest of the group? And if
Hmm.
they don't, then that's okay because I bet a team of people that are just trying to get on SNL would kill. I mean, they're going to work hard, and everyone
Yeah,
else
probably.
maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I'm being
Yeah.
optimistic. Uh,
So
well,
to talk about those people who like are always swimming for deeper waters, there's definitely a lot of people in Chicago who are on like 30 shows, and they're in all of them about 20%.
right, right. And I know that you and I both know that when you just do it and you fall into improv and you let it do its thing, you learn so much and the opportunities that come don't necessarily come from improv, but improv definitely has a hand in what happens to you, you know? I think that there's so many things that we learn from it and in the way that we are, the stillness that we can learn from it, the confidence that we can get from it, all of that stuff becomes part of you and you leave improv and you bring that with you and
Yeah.
and that's a recipe for success, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the longest friends that I've had, I have met through improv. I have maybe one friend that I keep up with who is a non-improv friend at this point.
Right. And it's funny because it's like I have a couple of one of my other non-improv friends, one of my last non-improv friends is Doug, and now he's an improviser. He's a musical improviser, and he doesn't know it yet, but he is. He does know it. He does know it.
You converted him.
I
It's my
guess.
one. It's my one like picadillo about sort of improv economy. I think is we unfortunately end up converting way too many people to become improvisers, and I mean, which is not to say that I don't want anyone to become an improviser, because if you
Sure.
want to improvise, welcome. The stage is open. We're glad to have you here. But we unfortunately convert almost everyone who comes, or we try to convert everyone who comes to see a show into a student and a practitioner. And, that's uncommon. So maybe this is a feature, maybe it's a bug of improv, but it's uncommon in almost any other field. Even theater, if you go watch a Shakespeare play, they're not like, hey, come back and take Shakespeare classes on the weekend. They're just like, please come back and watch another play later. We're doing Hamlet next month, so we'd
If
love to
thou
have you back
liketh
here for
what thine seeneth on this fortnight,
that. Yeah.
subscribeth to thine. Yeah, that's. I'm butchering that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's how theater survive. Is they survive by having people who just want to watch shows. Because every person you turn into a student is eventually going to become a performer who is not paying money to be in classes, and they want to be on stage, and there's only so much stage.
Uh, there is when we cling to a theater, but if I
Yeah.
think if we focus on community and redefine what that word means to us and approach it from this new way, I feel better. And I feel like all of a sudden I think we'd have more stages than we know what to do with if we focused on the community and stayed connected as a group. There's really not. I always said if you ever wanted a message to get around the world, tell an improviser, and it'll be 5 minutes. Everyone will know. We're
Yeah.
we're all connected. We're all over the place. And that thing, that like feeling. Well, I don't want to get too far into this, although I do love talking to you about this, and I'm so glad that you are asking that question because I invite you to like check this out and not the rooms and the channels. This is Discord is just a container. This is a,
Mhm.
a philosophical change, I think, in the way that we look at how we as community leaders and educators um, approach the community. Like what are we what
Yeah.
are we trying to do? But I do want to get into today's topic with you, and we're just going to talk about it. Whatever your thoughts are on it, it's a a simple tip to get better at improv. And the tip today is nothing is wrong. And there's a quick little story with this. I was so fortunate to take a workshop with uh, TJ Jagodowski and Dave Pasquizzi. TJ and Dave, they're a duo. If you're not familiar with them, I mean, CG, you are familiar with them. But to anyone listening, if
Yes.
you're not familiar with them,
Actually, just saw TJ perform last Friday. He was very good.
oh, awesome, awesome. At the Annoyance.
At IO, he was doing a team called Buzzards with a few other people, but it was a very good show. But like classic. mid 2000s IO kind of quality show.
Oh, is that a good thing?
I think it's a good thing. I mean, I hate to like be old man shaking fist at clouds and to wax rhapsodic about a time that has passed, but there was a an average like batting average prior to the maybe like 2014 or so that we're not back up to yet. And it's nice to see a show with just like a bunch of veterans. You know,
Yeah.
they've done improv for a long time. They're obviously skilled. They're obviously talented practitioners. They're good stage energy, good chemistry, and they can get up on stage and just shake out a show that a lot of teams in Chicago I don't think can quite hit at.
Wow, really? That's interesting. And I'm so glad that I would love to have you come in and do like a Q&A at another time with other improvisers too, just to talk about, what's it like in Chicago? How is the improv there? I want to go back to before we continue with this. I'm glad you gave it. That's great for anyone who doesn't know about TJ and Dave. It's good to get a little bit of an insight to know just um, how how much they get it. They really get uh, the the I don't know. They just get it. When they come out and do improv, it's like a warm hug for an hour. It's great. It's healing.
They really are incredible at the art form in a way that it transcends the art form. I mean they've done shows in New York, regularly. They used to like once a month or so that were like regular sellout shows that people are just like it's just good. It if you didn't know it was improv, you would think it was a play, an
Absolutely.
oddly written play for two people, but you would think it was just a play.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely doesn't need the context of this is an improv show for you to enjoy what you're about to see. But I don't think we ever need that context personally. But that's a whole other conversation for another time. Um,
Yeah.
let's just dog ear all these 8-hour conversations. But
Yeah,
just
you're
to
gonna
kind
have me a back a bunch, Anthony. I can already tell.
I would love that. And I'd love to have Billy here too. And Billy had to leave, but thank you, Billy, for hopping in here. And I did want to say this. I want to go way back too for a second uh, about the Orlando improv community, so that um, Steve Mangold is the name that comes to mind when I think about the community, because Steve was one of the first people to text me and say, "Hey, we're all going to go watch Ashley and Mal perform on Thursday night at SAC and support them because they got into Thursday night." And I was like, "Whoa, that is a cool thing." Like, I have not been texted by other improvisers to go to an improv show
Hmm.
for support reasons. Um, and I was like, "Oh, are we opening?" Nope. We're just here to watch. Great, great. Like, it was so cool. And then we went to the bar and we talked about it. That's an experience I don't have other than when I go to festivals. And
Sure.
I want more of that feeling, you know.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that's something that like
and he's a
I
community builder, and
you and
there's a
I have
lot of
done a
people
bunch
that,
of festivals,
yeah,
and we've met each other at festivals. But I think that's where we first met was at festivals, and like that sort
yeah,
of micro community at festivals, I think is primarily the reason why festivals are popular in the way they are because people just like they just ache to be a part of that kind of micro community, even if it's only for 3 days. Just to like, we're here, we're in this together, we're all watching each other's shows, we're not going anywhere. There's one thing that like when I used to run the festival in San Diego that I didn't love about the LA performers. No shade cast of the LA performers, as a general rule, because I know a lot of them, they're all very talented people, but we would get a lot of teams that they would only drive down for their show and then immediately drive back up because we're only 3 hours away from LA. So there wasn't a lot of
yeah,
impetus for them to stick around, which is a bit of a bummer.
yeah. I felt that a little bit with there was one team during the festival that we just had, the OTIF festival, that they were pleasant. It has nothing to do with that, but looking at it now with what I've learned recently about the community, and um, mutual concern, that's the thing that was missing. They were like, "Cool, thanks for the festival. We did our show when we were leaving," and I was like, "Oh, but wait, what about the mutual concern?" I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that's what was missing. I was like, "Oh, that's weird." What
Mm-hmm.
about that felt kind of cold in a way? And they weren't cold at all, but it felt
Mm-hmm.
almost transactional. And I've been trying to figure out what that was, and I think it's the mutual concern. Not that they don't have it, but that they might not necessarily need it. They might not be a part of it in that way. But you're 100% right. The ache to be part of a community and be part of that, and to be in a room full of people that are obsessed about the thing you're obsessed with.
Yeah.
When I talk to
And
my other people about improv, they don't get it like when I talk to you or anyone at a festival. It's a completely different thing. I don't have to explain anything. I can just talk in the shorthand.
yeah, yeah, that's very true. It's something that I think a lot of people like about the Countdown Improv Festival that you and I think, are both going to be at. That they just announced their teams that got in for. It's something that like my girlfriend has talked about. I say like, how do I get people to come to an improv festival that they're not in? Which is something that I've been wrestling with Justin and Kelly for the last 2 years, trying to get people, even if they didn't get in, to come be a part of it. It's like
Right.
if you are at a festival and you're not playing, there is a really high barrier to get into the in group because people are like, "Well, why are you here? Oh, you're like a partner of somebody here. Oh, okay." Which
Yeah.
is it's something that maybe we could work on, as community to have mutual concern or just mutual. Oh, it's so wonderful that you came here, rather than oh, you're not playing. Oh, well, never mind.
I mean, I know that the values that I have for a festival for me is education, networking, and just and laughing and having a good time. And but you're right. If I don't get into a festival, well, it depends. I mean, if I don't get into a festival, it depends on how far away it is and what that is. But look at Improv Utopia, which you are, I believe, a teacher at, right? An instructor.
I have not taught at Improv Utopia. I would love to, but I have not taught at Improv
Oh,
Utopia.
okay. Oh, I'm so
But
sorry.
I've been a bunch of times. I first started going in 2012, and I love it. I'm not going this year, unfortunately, but this will be my first year, excluding 2020, that I have not gone since 2012. So I would preach its gospel.
Would you say that that's a place that people go and it's not a festival? It's all the pieces, it's all community with I mean, I know there's shows, but you don't necessarily perform at Improv Utopia. I haven't gone. I'm dying to go.
Yeah, well, you do perform there's a lot of opportunities to perform. So like Yosemite, which I went to last year, the whole weekend is built around a form. You learn one form for the entire weekend. And at the sort of the weekend concludes with a camp show, and everyone's sort of doing a set of this form, which is very fun. But some of the camps have wandered away a little bit from the like absolute last night show. I think East Camp, the last time I did, they do a jam on the last night, which you can participate in if you want to, but if you don't feel like it. I think the last time I went to East, I was like, I'm tired. I've been doing
Yeah.
improv all weekend, and I'm old now, and I didn't really want to do a show that year. But there is ample opportunity to perform, but we are only performing for each other because we're at a camp on like a lake in Pennsylvania. There is no audience, no one, and we couldn't get them a seat anyway. Honestly, the room is full of
Yeah.
100 improvisers. There's not a chair in there for a paying audience.
Well, and we're going to get back to today's topic, I swear, everybody. But this is great too, and I'm glad we're talking about this because, um, you know, so that in a way feels like it's not a festival at all. Yet improvisers are packed inside and they're not performing. That tells me that yeah, we can do it. The festival the festival is more like a show and it should be more like a festival. One thing I did not like about OTIF this year, not that I didn't like it, but I'm really kind of coming to the realization as we do this. I'm like, oh, you know what we need? We need a place for improvisers to sit and talk to each other and hang out. We need
Hmm.
a big old lounge. A big old
Yeah.
lounge would be great because then we could just talk to each other and we don't have to, you know, you're either in the show or outside, or you're in the green room, like people want to mill. They want to mill around. It's part of it.
Yeah.
And you can't sit and watch improv for 4 days straight. I don't care who you are. You need a break. you need to eat, you need to rest, you need to be out of the room for a little bit, you need to let your hands, stop being sore from clapping. It's a lot, and I think a lounge and I think the Improv Utopias and the Terror and Rants, they have. I went to their camp one time. Now I'm forgetting the name of it. Um,
Oh, it's the one it was up in Wisconsin at one point, I
yes,
believe, correct? Yeah.
yeah, and that was life changing. I loved that, uh, and super fun. So, um, well, let's get back to TJ and
Great. Let's
Dave.
get back to the topic. 31
So,
minutes of preamble to get to the topic.
um, but that's good. That's a good thing to talk about too. So got to take a workshop with TJ and Dave, and it was Dave um, who coached me on this. So I did a scene, and I drank. We were at a wedding. I drank the champagne and immediately spit it out. Right. He stops the scene and he does two things. He walks up to me. I'm in a room with, I think the room is packed, and there's about 70 people, maybe more, and
Wow.
only 30 of us paid to take the workshop. The rest of the people in the room, I don't remember what it was. I don't know the exact numbers, but we paid for the workshop. The rest of the room was full of people who just wanted to like watch. I think they paid differently. I don't remember, but the point is, it was full of my peers. So
Mhm.
that's important to what happens next because Dave walks up to me and whispers the note in my ear, and he says, "Nothing is wrong. Let's do the scene again, and this time, nothing is wrong." And then he walks away, and then he turns around and he looks at me, and he just kind of mouths. He's like, no, he's not too far away. He's like, "Nothing is wrong," and he walks away. And I was like, "Oh, thanks for whispering that note because I'm in a room with, all the, and it was nice to just kind of have it told to me personally, and
Sure.
um, and then the note itself of nothing is wrong really was a big turning point for me because I started the scene at a nice grounded level, and that's why I kind of wanted to talk to you about this particular tip because I know that you working in the deconstruction right now, it starts with and I got to take your workshop, and if I could plug you for a minute, take workshops with CG, but that's the note,
Ooh.
and it's a simple note, nothing is wrong, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, Dave obviously he knows what he's doing. So I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna Monday morning quarterback Dave Vesquazi. Um,
Sure, sure.
I think any improv rule is never absolute. The Nietzsche phrase "God is dead" really means that there's no moral absolutism in the world, and I think even probably Dave would agree that no improv note is equally valuable in all situations, but it sounds like it's valuable at least for the style that TJ and Dave often do, which I assume is probably the goal of a workshop that Dave is running, is to get you onto that level of that style of play. And there's certainly improv in which, yeah, something is wrong. So, for example, in the deconstruction, at the tail end, the back half of it, we're doing commentary scenes, which are often against energy. They're very like gamey, classic UCB game type scenes. In those, there is something that is wrong. There's a person who has an unusual or frustrating behavior, and there's somebody who is pushing back. They are against that energy. There's this sort of odd, even dynamic. They are the voice of reason. But absolutely, as you alluded to, the beginning of the deconstruction has a sword scene that is played for 5 to 7 minutes, normally in the way the show works. And in that, you don't have big problems because big problems are going to lead to the scene collapsing earlier. If you want length, you have light with energy. If you have no's, they are smiling no's. Oh, I mean, I guess. So those are absolutely, their style of play notes, and certainly the one of like, nothing is wrong is going to put you in a spot where like, you're not going to find problems. We're not going to be dealing with problems. If we have problems, they're going to be relatively small. It's going to give us more room to explore the world and spend time with each other as characters.
I love that. Yes, I think that's so important. With any note or any tip, it has its, and that's exactly what this is about because it's like, let's break that out a little bit. For me to say nothing is wrong is only part of it. That tip might help you today, but it might hurt you tomorrow. I could see how
Yeah.
if I took that note as, oh, as long as I keep in my mind that nothing is wrong in every
Right.
scene, the day when you come in with a great offer and I act like quote unquote nothing is wrong, but you've already come in with there's a problem, that could be considered a denial. And I
Sure.
like your
Yeah.
point about light and energy. And so, are you saying that this could be a good technique if we're looking to keep a nice long scene because we don't want it to collapse in?
Absolutely. Playing Nothing is Wrong is going to tend to have longer scenes. We're not going to run into problems. We're not going to have conflicts. If we have conflicts, they're going to be resolved relatively easily. We're going to get more length out of those scenes. It's a way that, like, to put it back into the regular world of theater, Shakespeare plays are full of things being wrong. Romeo and Juliet, it is wrong that they love each other because they are star-crossed lovers from two families that hate each other and have hated each other for time immemorial, to the point that, like, they brawl in the streets. So there are things that are wrong in that world. But when they want a scene that's a love scene, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo, Romeo and Juliet in the window, and Romeo looking down below, they're not, hey, this is terrible, you suck. They're maybe
Yeah.
wrestling with it being wrong, but they're in agreement that they like each other. They're happy with each other. They're happy to see each other. Juliet's excited that Romeo is down in the garden, and Romeo's excited that Juliet's up there being like, you know, tell me that you love me and forswear thy name, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. We could just be together forever. So I mean, those are like, those are the energies that go in the show, and you go back and forth between those energies. It depends on what kind of show you're trying to do.
Right. I think that's the good point. I think it's important to say this note was given to me by one of the hardest working, most experienced, long form, slow burn improv performers. It's a great tip if you're looking for long form, slow burn, and keeping and also really building, gathering in all the information you can about the character that they're building in front of you, and building the world and getting the feeling for the chemistry of these two characters. How do these two characters rub against each other? That will come, that can be paced out a little bit so that the improvisers can really maybe take it in more.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you got it. Sounds like Dave did a good job.
All right, great. I mean, I actually I'm glad we're talking about it because it's fun to kind of just break it out. Um, the the note of um, why do you think improvisers go for trouble early?
They panic. They panic, and they're nervous and they're afraid. And we, as human beings, naturally get defensive or aggressive when we feel nervous. I think also there's a feeling, that we watch a lot of TV and movies and plays. We have all of that in us. We understand naturally that theater and drama have conflict associated with it. And we are like, so both of those two things are functioning, that we are both nervous to be in a scene and we're lashing out and putting that in quotation marks. And also we are like, well, it's a scene. It's got to have some sort of dramatic tension, which is usually conflict. So let's get into that conflict, baby.
Right.
Which is, why so many scenes end up having arguments and fighting in them.
And you said something that I really liked. Uh, you called it with energy. And can you speak to that? That would you say with energy falls in line with this in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I got it from Bill Arnett. I won't say I invented it whole cloth, but he's a big proponent of with and against energy being the two sort of primary energies that we're doing when we're in improv scenes. So with energy is like we're in agreement. We're mostly cool with each other, or maybe entirely cool with each other. We are to say we're with is we're pointed in the same direction. We're running parallel with each other. These are classic peas in a pod scenes. Your Statler Waldorf, your Liam Neeson's. The characters are in agreement. They have an equal point of view. They see the world the same way. They're not they're not in opposition to each other, so they're playing with. Now, Statler and Waldorf are strong with energy, and a normal source scene is sort of light with energy. But I mean, that's a with, and then against is just like we're in opposition to each other. Where you have a way that you're seeing the world, and I see it differently in some way. So I'm pushing back against that energy some, which you could still do in source scenes where you maybe go back and forth between some with and some against, but the overarching energy of the scene is light with energy.
So maybe it might be a good idea for improvisers to discuss, okay, what type of improv are we doing? What type, what's the kind of format, or what's the style? What are we looking to do? And then say, or maybe someone might say like, oh, well, this note, I'm having trouble because this tip that I got, doesn't seem to be fitting with what we're doing. Well, take a look at the form or the format that you're doing. Maybe it doesn't apply to that form. If you're doing high, fast energy, or maybe even maybe the get or the suggestion that you use to initiate the scene is could like if you start with, I don't know, if you start with action or something, do you think maybe talking about that ahead of time
Oh,
could benefit?
100%. The players in the show should be playing in a way that is complementary to each other. In the same way that we were talking earlier about putting a house team together and ending up with a bunch of different people who want something different out of the show. If you take a bunch of people who are churched at different theaters and they come in and you've got two people from IO that are trying to do this like organic relationship stuff, and you got two people from Annoyance who are trying to do like strong character energy, and two people from Second City who are like, I come out, I establish the scenario, we build a platform, and then we do a tilt, 3 lines in or so. It's not to say that those people absolutely can't play together, but they're operating in different theater styles. They're not playing the same show, and there's probably going to be some trying to navigate it on stage as we try to negotiate how the scene is going to work. And I say this as somebody who has run jams before and will run jams again in the future. It's my primary problem with a lot of jams is they're just like two people up. All right, great, have fun. And I'm a big proponent when I do jams, trying to get people on the same page a little bit stylistically, so that they are not like what one person is playing farce and the other person is trying to do like a Neil Simon play.
Right. That's really interesting. I don't know. I like mixing people up randomly, but I also like the idea. Now you've got me thinking about two things. One, maybe saying like, my long form improvisers, raise your hand, pick 5 people who are interested in long form. My short form improvisers, but I don't know. Or maybe just like, I don't know how I would organize them. Maybe different colored T-shirts. I don't know, white, no. And then the other thing too is I would love kind of like I don't know, maybe there's like a little checklist or questionnaire that the team could do before they start to play or whatever, to say like, well, what are you into? What do you like? Um,
Oh, Anthony Francis, you clearly need to take my workshop on improv taxonomy, which I think you maybe did take last year when I taught it at Countdown. But one of the things that I have added to it that I'm still tweaking with a little bit is an online questionnaire. And I
oh,
go through a bunch of questions that are designed to like figure out what kind of show people want to do. And I can sort of look at the data of what people's preferences are. And it'll tell me a lot about what kind of scenes do you want to do low angle of attack, slow start scenes? Or do you want to do high angle of attack, deconstructive type scenes? We're doing commentary things. Do you want to form? Do you not want to form? So do a brief plug there for my little questionnaire, but I've got it, man. I've got it. I'm working on it.
I'm so I have been cheated out of your workshop a couple of times. Not cheated. I love Justin and Kelly. So we're like super volunteers, super fans of the Countdown Improv Festival. So when we're
Yeah.
there, we're working. So I got to sneak into your workshop and take the first half of it. I didn't sneak into it. I took your workshop, and then I could only take half of it. But I kept that piece of paper. I look at that piece of paper. I want so much more. I would love to for you to bring that to this community because that's exactly what what I think would help all of us. A common language or a common um, uh, I don't know if this is the right word, nomenclature or like vernacular, like to say
Yeah.
like, what do you like? Yeah, here's the vernacular because that the knowledge base is something we want to build here, so that people can come here and they can have an understanding. So if you're an improviser, like you said, who's part of the community with that mutual, but at the same time you live in the middle of nowhere and you've started improv with five of your friends, that is perfect. That's exactly what that group could use for them to
Yeah.
get on track. Then they've got support from a community like ours where they can ask their questions, they can kind of get a feel for what stuff is, they could talk to us live. Sorry, I'm just excited, but
Yeah.
that's exactly what I need too. I love that, and yeah, an online form to kind of not like a quiz of like what kind of improviser are you, but what do you like? How do you
Yeah.
like to do
Oh,
this so that we can all play? Because it's like saying, oh, CG, he's a classically trained musician. He will be playing the violin, and then Anthony, who is an acid rock guitarist, he will be accompanying CG, and you're like, well, how are you with classical music? Acid rock guitar guy. It's like, I don't know, we'll see, and it's like you
yeah.
you want to kind of play with people who are in the same or or we can all learn how to play a different way, but you want to kind of know where everyone's at. Is that what you're saying?
It it to me is like in your example of like classic rock versus acid rock versus classical music. First thing I thought of is like mashups, and I really enjoy mashups. They're very fun, but the idea of a mashup being good, where like we took a '70s rock track and we laid rap over the top of it, and it's good. It's part of the enjoyment of it is that it's a surprise that those things work together. They're like, oh man, they have like similar beat or rhythm, or like the vibe is sort of the same, but it's not every song can be mashed up with every other song. Like it doesn't work that way. So it's just not to say that like acid rock and classical music might have a very good show, but the odds are lower because those styles are not necessarily complementary to each other.
and
There
of
might
course,
be something really, really cool, but if it's really, really cool, it's going to be a surprise that it accidentally worked and not like, I knew all along classical music and acid rock were going to work together.
right, right, and according to your taxonomy uh, paper, this would be considered a novelty improv show.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you told me like I took a classically trained Shakespearean actor and I put them on stage with a short form player from Comedy Sports who's going to be doing Stance at Neil, if it works, it's going to be like, oh my god, I can't believe that managed to click. And if it doesn't work, you're going to be like, well, we gave it a shot.
Right, right, and it's just it's fun. Well, that's great. Well, Chris, I don't want to keep you too long. Is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of this tip, or anything else you want to mention about this topic that we haven't covered?
No, just yeah, my recommendation to a lot of people is just keep working at it and find a group of people that you like enjoy playing with and try and play with them regularly. I ran auditions for our new Labcast here last weekend, and I had a few people ask me for feedback, and I'm always happy to provide feedback when I can. I don't know if it's helpful or not. An audition is like, I saw you once do two scenes. How much do I know about what a kind of an improviser you are? But so many people, I'm just like, I hope you're practicing somewhere. I hope you've got 5 or 6 people that you like and that you're in a room with them once a week, just practicing and trying this stuff out. This is such a soft art form. It just requires time, and you just got to keep working at it and keep playing around and experimenting. So, good luck experimenting, everybody.
I love that you said that because the at the end of the day, the most important thing is find people that you like and do improv with those people. The end. It's going to be better than anything else you could. It'll be more fun than anything else. And if you're all working hard at it and then just enjoying playing with each other, I think that's the best thing we could ask for, right?
Oh, 100%. I
Um,
mean, this is
yeah.
community, right? It's common concern and common joy.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Common concern and common joy. Is there any? Let's plug some of your stuff. Do you have any stuff coming up? Would you want to do a workshop here in the main stage as I ask you live? But I would love that. But what do you got coming up for you?
Yeah, to answer your question, I would love to do a workshop. Just hit me up. We'll work out the details. As I mentioned, I'm still directing the deconstruction show at IO. It's every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. It's called Keystone. You can follow it on Instagram at Keystone_improv. I've been recording pretty much every show for about the last 3 or 4 months. Are all up on my YouTube page. So if you want to see what one of our deconstructions looks like, they're all up there. They're 30 minutes long each, so watch to your own peril.
I will
And
watch.
then
Well, I'm
I'm in a
excited.
team called yeah, and then I'm on a team called Joy. We play here in Chicago at the Den Theater. We're trying a new run out at the Den, so right now we're playing every other Friday night. I've got a show tonight, and I'm going to be at some festivals. My next one is the Happy Valley Improv Festival. It's in Pennsylvania, and I'll be there right around this time next month in May. So. And I'm teaching a workshop there too, teaching the improv taxonomy, and I don't know if it's completely sold out yet. So if this piqued your interest, that might be your shot.
It definitely has piqued my interest, and I definitely want to. I definitely take that workshop from you again and again. Actually, if you're, I'll tell you this: since you are a member of this community, uh, if you wanted to post in the videos, we have. As I'm looking at it now, we've been moving things around, but uh, it's the showcase. So in the hallway, if you look on the
Mm-hmm.
left here in the hallway, we have showcase. If you ever have a
Oh,
YouTube
sure.
video of a deconstruction that you think would help this community, please throw it in the showcase. And that goes for anybody. If you've, and even if it doesn't help, even if it's just something you did and you want feedback, I'm actually, the votes are done on our end about the, me, I'm going to be doing what Bill Arnett actually did during the pandemic, which was reviewing some improv shows and
Oh,
giving notes
yeah,
ahead
yeah,
of
yeah,
time.
yeah.
I loved that he did that. He actually did that for me, and I have that as a private video that he sent to me, and I loved it. I thought it was really helpful. He's obviously the kindest guy, gives great notes. He's got good stage
Yeah,
side manner, and
yeah. Good stage side manner. Yeah, that's very true. But it's a
so
nice way of phrasing it. But you're absolutely right.
so yeah, I liked that. So we're gonna bring that, and but all of that. If you ever have any YouTube videos to you and anybody that you want to just from improv shows you've done, or just throw them in showcase. Would love to
Yeah, you know
watch them and
what?
talk
As
about them.
soon as we're off of here, I'm gonna go grab the one that I just uploaded from this Wednesday, and I'm gonna stick it in the showcase for anybody to watch.
Oh, that's cool. I'd love that. I'll be the first one there. Well, CG, man, thank you so much for being here today. Thanks for chatting with me about all these things. And you can, if you're listening to this on Patreon, thank you so much. And of course, you're going to see it in the Patreon channel here. Our Patreon is free. I want to thank Marissa for being in the audience today, and for Billy Merritt for hopping in the audience. And I'd love to get Billy up here too, and talk to him, because Billy's got a really interesting story, and he's chock full of good things. He
Oh
wrote,
yeah,
yeah.
he did write a book. You have him. I'll probably hop on because I got questions about Pirate Robot Ninja for him, so I'll be excited
Oh,
to
I
ask him
bet.
that.
Pirate Robot Ninja, really, really great. But CG, thank you so much, and we'll see you. We'll see you around here, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Anthony.
All right. Thanks, everybody.